Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Welcome to our 40th year anniversary celebration. I'm so glad that you are here this evening. So let's give a round of applause. So we are going to have a welcome greeting from President Arroyo first before we welcome our next speaker.
Colleagues in ministry, it is my distinct honor to convey heartfelt greetings from Columbia Theological Seminary, representing our students, faculty, board of trustees, and staff. As we join you in celebrating your 40th anniversary, I take this opportunity to acknowledge and honor the remarkable achievements of both past and present witnesses. Through their unwavering resilience and dedication, they have tirelessly worked to elevate the voices and concerns of Asian and Asian American women within our faith communities, the academy, and society at large. I am deeply thankful for PANAAWTM, whose mission inspires scholars, activists, and practitioners to share critical research as well as personal and collective joys and struggles. You create empowering spaces for Asian and North American Asian women to claim their theological voices and leadership. Columbia Seminary stands in solidarity with your mission and core values, and we are humbled by your presence on this campus. I honor and celebrate the unwavering commitment of the board and coordinating team that has organized this conference, and I eagerly anticipate the development of the impactful panel discussions and speakers who will explore vital topics scheduled in your itinerary. It is joy to see Dr. Haruka Nawata Ward, Columbia's Professor of Church History Emerita, and the founding member of PANAAWTM, serving on this panel alongside our talented alum, Hannah Injimuri, currently a PhD student at Garrett Theological Seminary. I am also grateful for the entire panelists that are here. We're grateful for you. And thank you for your leadership and scholarship. I must also commend the inspiring leadership of Dr. Christine J. Hong, Columbia's Associate Professor of Educational Ministry and lead professor of our Doctor of Educational Ministry program. Dr. Hong, where are you at this moment? There we go. And Dr. Soo Kim Park, who is standing beside her, Associate Dean of Contextual Education and International Partnerships. Friends, their visionary guidance fosters deep engagement and faith-filled participation within this esteemed organization and indeed at Columbia Theological Seminary. Friends, I have the great honor of serving as Columbia Theological Seminary's 11th president for the past 36 months, 14 hours, 10 seconds. But who's counting? Columbia Theological Seminary, friends, exists to form pastoral leader scholars to renew Christ's church and transform the world through faithful scholarship. Reflecting on almost 200 years of service, which we will celebrate in 2028, be expecting an invitation from us for you to participate in several of our events. It serves as an educational theological institution, and we affirm that God forms all persons in the divine image and calls leaders to serve in powerful, robust, and innovative ways as we continue to forge ahead in these uncertain times. Especially now, Columbia Theological Seminary is dedicated to fostering an inclusive vision of the church and that advocates for justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. As such, I hope that we, Columbia Seminary and PANAAWTM, can continue to explore vital modalities of partnerships where your voices and resources and scholarship can continue to inform and bring to light critical exchanges of theological dialogue and inquiry. May you continue to coordinate, organize, and implement your missional care, values, and may this event, which marks your 40th year of faithful and inspirational service, continue to serve as a vital instrument of activism, peace building, and leadership formation. This servant and Columbia Seminary stands ready to explore meaningful and relevant partnerships with you. To God be the glory. And friends, you are all invited at 8 o'clock for a reception at the President's residence. And probably within 5 or 10 minutes, I will need to go to the residence because I've been cooking since 5 o'clock this morning,
wow,
getting ourselves ready for you. But friends, welcome and many blessings.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Bo-Young Lee. I serve as the current president and chair of the board of this amazing organization called the PANAAWTM, Pacific Asian and North American Asian Women in Theology and Ministry. Welcome.
Woo!
President Arroyo, let me begin my remark thanking you again. In 2023, after COVID, when we resumed our in-person conference in San Diego, I wrote many letters of fundraising, asking for institutional support. And I think you got my email a few months after you started as a presidency, and you responded to my email in 30 minutes.
Wow.
And then for this conference, I wrote President Arroyo, and within less than 20 hours, he said, we will be honored to host the PANAAWTM here. So I just cannot thank you enough for that solidarity that you show up actually in action. Mm-hmm. And also, let me begin this remark, this marvelous time, by recognizing our founding members, of whom we call founding mothers. And two of them are here, Dr. Rita Nakashima-Burak and Dr. Kwak Pui Lan. Please stand. Dr. Kwak Pui Lan was here. Probably she also has a class to teach, so she will join us at the reception. Over 70, you still teach, and you are demanded. Thank you for your vision 41 years ago. As a small group of doctoral students and also ministers throughout the United States, they gathered together, and some of them were in the same field within theological studies. What they decided was, rather than competing with each other for job and whatever, they will grow together, thrive together beyond surviving by expanding networks. That's their dream. 13 people 41 years ago. Now, this year, we have 120 people registered for this event. Without their vision and mentoring and dreaming and cultivating new ways of being theologian from lived experiences of Asian and Asian American women, PANAAWTM would have not been where we are. And through their role modeling of being mentor, being friends, being fierce academic and ministers, we grew through scholarship And now Academy and the church recognize who we are, and they take our voice seriously, and we take their mental very seriously, and we continue to do that work. So thank you again for your dream and how you have lived your vision with us. In Korean, which is my ethnic and cultural background, we have this saying, 10년이면 강산도 변한다, which literally means in 10 years, even mountains and rivers are changed. 40 years is epoch time. And a lot of changes have been made with the world and with the academy, with the ministries, and even with the PANAAWTM. Throughout these 40 years of a journey, we have some allies and solidarity builders who have been showing up for us and watching how we grow. Many of us who are on faculty of a PANAAWTM board were mentored by this organization, United Methodist Women of Color Scholars. And many of you are still remember those times being mentored by Dr. Rogero Ross, who led that program. Also, Dr. Rita Bragg was on the program as an initial mentor, and our immediate past president, Dr. Jung-Ah Kim, was also mentor, and they are not Methodist. Because they were invited to be on that program because there was no United Methodist Asian American women on faculty in the country. And through that vision, many of us are mentored, and now we are in mentoring role. So I want to recognize Dr. Rogero Ross's presence here. And she just retired from Spelman College, and she's a co-principal investigator of the Garden Initiative for Black Women's Religious Activism. So I invite you to say a few greeting words for us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here, and it is an honor to offer words of congratulations to PANAAWTM on these 40 years of outstanding service and work in the Academy and beyond. I especially want to congratulate and say greetings to Dr. Brock and to Dr. Puilan in her absence for founding the organization. Two women who are friends and colleagues of mine, and also to my colleagues and friends, Dr. Bo Young and Dr. Nami Kim. I don't know if Nami's okay, for your more than 20 years of recent leadership of this organization. Congratulations for 40 wonderful years, and may you have 40 more.
Thank you.
40 more.
We also have other honor the guest. So I am on the faculty of Iliff School of Theology in Denver, Colorado. My president, who responded to our fundraising letter this year within 30 minutes, is here in person. So Dr. Lee Butler, would you please stand? And I cannot ask a better president.
I'm very honored to be here this evening to celebrate your 40th anniversary. I received the request and thought, oh, I'm willing to sponsor, but I can't be there. And then discovered this night was open, so I was delighted to be present. And I'm just so happy for you, for the sisterhood, for the work that you do.
Thank
Congratulations.
You. Sitting next to Dr. Lee Butler is Dr. Randall Bailey, with whom Dr. Bragg and Dr. Ross, myself, Dr. Nami Kim, Dr. Ann Jo also formed this U.S. branch out of ITHOT called the Transgressive Theology Group that we were co-conspiring several things. So Dr. Randall Bailey, thank you so much for being here tonight.
On the one hand, this is the second time I've been to Columbia in 2 weeks, celebrating first on Dr. Smith's installation. But I'm also glad, having been active in the African American Association when I was in school, when I was a faculty member, that other groups have worked diligently to help us see that diversity, equity, and inclusion is a necessary part of this country, and that you're keeping the work done in ways that God is blessing you and us. Thank you.
Thank you. And in addition to annual conference, the one big commitment that PANAAWTM has been always committed to is a mentoring of the next generation. To expand our pools of future leaders, we devoted ourselves to mentor our master students, including how to apply for PhD program. Once they are in PhD program, we have a lot of different mentoring programs during annual conference, including publications and job interviews and all kinds. So many of you who are in current PhD doctoral programs, you went through every fall intensive mentoring program by many of us. And that program was possible because of generous support from Forum for Theological Education, FTE. And Dr. Samaria Divine, who is a current director of external community engagement for doctoral initiatives, are also here. So with that support, many of us are already also here. So Dr. Divine, thank you for being here.
It is such an honor to be here to celebrate 40 years, wow, of brilliant scholarship and such a beautiful community. And I look forward to continued partnership with PANAAWTM as we work to equip future leaders in this field. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So also many colleagues in ministries and also in academia in Greater Atlanta area, thank you so much for being here, especially dear colleagues from Columbia Theological Seminary being here. And you have hosted us before, and we are again here, and we are surrounded by your support and solidarity. So thank you again for being here. And this 40 magnificent years that started with a small dream, that became big dream and our dream. And we will continue this our dream for the next coming generations, more than 40 years. We will see rivers and mountains being changed in the next 100 years. Right. Thank you.
talk. So when you have a chance, thank her. Hi, hello, my name is Hannah. I'm an associate pastor of First UMC of San Diego, and I have to share a little bit of my story. I started coming to PANAAWTM in my 6th year of PhD. I wasn't going anywhere, and I had a baby. And before she turned 1, I needed an escape. And I came to PANAAWTM for the first time in 2008 in San Francisco, and experiencing PANAAWTM firsthand. The next year, I went back to Chicago 2009 with my year-and-a-half-year-old. And when I was coming here this year, she's the one who took me to the airport. And turning 18 this year, so that's how long I have been here. So if we have anyone who started coming to PANAAWTM before 2008, I would like to invite you to rise right now. You are my big sisters and mothers and aunties of my life. Thank you. And I think I work in a predominantly Anglo church, 155 years old, United Methodist Church, and they see something different in my leadership and teaching and ministry and preaching. Just because I'm a proud child of PANAAWTM as my mother, and United Methodist Women of Color Scholarship as my father. I call them my father because they are the one who kicked my ass. And PANAAWTM is the one who embraced me. So every time I came here, I was inspired, I was empowered, and most importantly, it was fun to be with people. And since then, I came to looking forward to coming back to PANAAWTM, and every time I had a chance, I did. So I invite you right now, I'm not going to ask you to share it, to think about how has PANAAWTM shaped your personal or professional journey in theology and ministry. Think about all these people that you touch base with. And those you can lean on to, and those you love to spend time with. If you don't have those yet, I invite you to come back until you make 10 of those.
Oh, that's good.
And with that in mind, I'd like to invite you to watch 2 other video greetings.
Greetings, PANAAWTM family and friends. My name is Jeffrey Kwon, President Emeritus of Claremont School of Theology. It is truly an honor to celebrate this incredible milestone, 40 years of PANAAWTM's impactful work. I've had the privilege of knowing this organization for over 3 decades, counting many of you as dear friends and esteemed colleagues. Throughout the years, I have witnessed firsthand how PANAAWTM has shaped generations of API women scholars, teachers, and leaders, leaving an enduring mark on the academy and beyond. PANAAWTM's contributions to the study of religion and theology have been profound, especially in addressing critical issues of gender, race, class, and sexuality. Your dedication to amplifying diverse voices and fostering transformative scholarship has not only advanced the field, but has also enriched communities worldwide. As we celebrate this remarkable legacy, I extend my deepest gratitude and heartfelt congratulations for your unwavering commitment. Here's to the next 40 years of groundbreaking work, continued inspiration, and an ever-growing impact. Congratulations, PANAAWTM.
Hello, my name is Daniel Lee, and I serve as the Academic Dean for the Center for Asian... My name is Daniel Lee, and I serve as the Academic Dean for the Center for Asian American Theology and Ministry at Fuller Seminary. Because of the erasure of Asian American history, so many Asian Americans think that they're the forerunners, when in fact, there have been waves of elders who've gone before us, who paved the way. That's one of the ways that I've learned about PANAAWTM. When I was looking for Asian American theology, I realized the fact that there are amazing work that was being done before, and I just didn't know about it. So I thought that, we were the first one. Of course, that's not really true. While the intersectional work of supporting Asian and Asian American women theologians and ministers is shared by all, PANAAWTM, in its particular way, have guided and resourced so many through its various programs and books. And for that, I am absolutely grateful. I want to congratulate PANAAWTM on the 40th anniversary of its amazing work.
I know we are just starting our 3-day conference, but I would like to think of all those allies and people that you work with and share the work with and support mutually. And I would like to invite you to pull out your phone and aim at the QR code on the screen, and it will give you the square box that will take you to a place. And you don't have to sign in or give your name. You just skip all the process and get to the survey and see if you can get to the place. Can you refresh the screen? That should be. And do you see the question? No? You don't have to go use the app. You can just use like, Can you refresh the screen, all of you? Is it working, Ayan? I activated it. It's not working. No. If so, we can bypass.
Okay.
We can do it at the end.
Okay.
You can start working on. Let's move to the next video.
Hello, my name is Roger Naum. I'm professor of Hebrew Bible here at Candler School of Theology, Emory University. Congratulations to PANAAWTM on your 40-year anniversary. In 1984 was a long time ago. As proof. Hello, my name is Roger Naum. I'm professor of Hebrew Bible here at Candler School of Theology, Emory University. Congratulations to PANAAWTM on your 40-year anniversary. In 1984 was a long time ago. As proof, look at this picture from 1984. Over the course of 40 years, PANAAWTM has done such good and excellent work in elevating the theological discourses and enhancing the capacities of ministry for so many people. I know especially for the first generation of leadership of PANAAWTM, this work was done at great and considerable cost. But I'm here to affirm and name that the work of PANAAWTM has been so critical for the flourishing of ministry. It is so important. I look forward to the next generation and the future thriving of this institute. In fact, for the 50th anniversary, I'd like to go ahead and send in my RSVP in 2034 when I'll be looking like this.
Funny. Don't worry about the poll. I'll try to see if I can integrate that into some other time. So let's not worry about that. And let's begin the party. And if you're wondering how I ended up being the celebration organizer and making myself a little fool in front of 100 people, I started coming here and building relationship. And when your sisters pull you in, can you do this? You want to say no, but you sort of want to say yes. So I'm recruiting for the ritual organizer for 45th year anniversary and 50th year anniversary. So if you would like to continue to come see me after this panel. And we'll plant future leadership training now.
Yeah, good. Nice, Hannah.
Thank you all for joining us at our kitchen table. Can everyone hear me? Wonderful. So we are doing this panel. Let me stand up. Okay. Just as I introduce folks, we're doing this panel tonight as kind of like sitting around a kitchen table, slightly more ceremonial, but we're having snacks and tea. It's something, at least in my family, but I know does happen across cultures, that you know, sometimes in the afternoon or mid-morning or in the evening, you'll have snacks and tea with your sisters, with your aunties. It's often intergenerational, and so that's what this is tonight. This is our intergenerational evening tea discussion, but a little formal so you can have a panel. So we're happy you're here with us. We'll probably have mochi after, so on your way to the president's house, come grab some. I want to thank our local committee here. If you're in the local committee with the sparkly headbands, please raise your hands. And if you're helping us out with technology tonight, like Jeff and the crew, can you please wave for us? Thank you. Thank you to Columbia Seminary and so many people who've helped put this together. Literally spent the afternoon putting together chairs, testing technology, making sure everything went well. And special thanks to Dr. Sue Kim Park for providing the most adorable tea set I've ever seen, as well as our water, and thank you to the planning team for providing the tea and the snacks. Welcome to you all here, and welcome to you all on the live stream. And as we begin, our theme for this entire weekend is kind of our passing down of recipes and weaving our stories together, traditions we have together as a community, as multiple cultures, as people groups, as families, and so that's what we're leaning into at this 40th anniversary. So with us at our kitchen table this evening is myself. I am the Reverend Brianna Van Velzen. I'm currently the Executive Director for Durham Congregations in Action, which is a nonprofit that works with over 50 congregations on justice matters in our local community. I'm formerly the community minister at Duke University Chapel, which was my first call, and actually in 2019 how I ended up at PANAAWTM in the first place. And I do spiritual direction, consulting, preaching, all of that. So happy to be here with all of you. And then with us we have Dr. Haruko Nawara Ward, who is the Professor Emerita of Church History of Columbia Theological Seminary here in Decatur. She is an honorably retired minister of Word and Sacrament of the Presbyterian Church USA. After retiring from teaching in December 2023, Haruko continues to research and write on histories of the Age of Reformations and the intersections of theologies, religions, cultures, societies, and human movements across the early modern world, specifically from Asian women-centered perspectives. She has quite a list of achievements, but in the name of us being able to let our panelists talk, I'm going to move on. Thank you for your work. And then we have Hannah Injamuri from Hyderabad, South India. She is a PhD candidate qualifying exams at Garrett Theological Seminary in Evanston, Illinois. She holds both a THM and an MDiv degree from Columbia Theological Seminary. She's completed her bachelor's in psychology, mass communication, and journalism at Osmania University, Hyderabad. She belongs to the Mennonite Brethren denomination in India and is a member of the Mennonite Church USA. All right. Then we have Dr. Grace Cow, graduated from Stanford University with departmental honors in philosophy and religious studies and co-terminal masters with philosophy. She also received the Golden Medal for Excellence in Humanities and Creative Arts for her undergraduate thesis, the ethical status of filial duties, the demythologization of filial piety, or SAO, I probably said that wrong, under the direction of Philip J. Ivanhoe, and became the inaugural recipient of the Howard M. Garfield Award. She relishes time she spent with her friends in her Christian Fellowship, Sorority, and Study Abroad program at Oxford University. She's also studied theology and philosophy at Harvard University, wrote a dissertation on human rights theory, and has honed her pedagogy through various teaching fellow opportunities and received 2 certificates of distinction in teaching for her work. Thank you. And then we have Halim Yoon, who is a PhD candidate at the University of Toronto. She was born and raised in Cheongju, South Korea. After majoring in theology in Korea, Halim came to the US in 2019 as a recipient of the Fulbright Scholarship to continue her studies in theology and pursue her vocation as an ordained minister. She is currently a candidate for ordained ministry in the United Methodist Church. And last but not least, we have Dr. Septemi Lakawa, who teaches mission studies, contextual theologies, and feminist constructive theology at Jakarta Theological Seminary, the oldest ecumenical seminary in Indonesia. Her main research interests are on Christian self-understanding in the presence of religious differences, the changing contour of the interreligious landscape, and the public and everyday character of interreligious dialogue shaped by women's experiences and imagination, and trauma theology and interreligious aesthetics in the aftermath of religious communal violence. Most recently, she served as the director of the Graduate and Postgraduate Studies program at Jakarta Theological Seminary. And she's also, all of these ladies are published. Please go read their books. So let's begin our conversation. All right, ladies, how has your journey with PANAAWTM shaped your theological or ministerial path? If you were to create a ritual object or artistic symbol, or if you have one with you to represent this journey, what would it be and what meaning would it hold for your story? For the sake of time, let's try to keep it to about 2 minutes. For myself, my journey with PANAAWTM has been shaped by people inviting me in 2019 when I was still a baby minister. I think I was in my 1.5 years into ministry, and several people were like, "Bree, have you ever heard of PANAAWTM?" Which I didn't, and I feel very ashamed because I met Dr. Kwok while I was still a student in seminary, so I should have known. And I had actually read parts of Off the Menu, I just didn't pay attention to how it was published. In my defense, I was reading a lot those days. So I came on a road trip with a bunch of Duke students to PANAAWTM and immediately found this beautiful intergenerational family that was already waiting. And I can't say I've ever met someone here who was not trying to do the best they could to support one another in ministry or in academia or in both. And the object I brought, which I'll also share at my workshop tomorrow, is this is my sarang. It is a cotton batik because I didn't want to bring the silk one my family passed down because that's very old. But this is a beautiful design that is a modern and traditional batik design. It's a modern material. It's easy to travel with and use. It's easier to clean. All of those things. It has butterflies on it. It's a little bit more modern design, but it's still using the traditional techniques of my peoples, of Indonesian peoples, to create this beautiful art and this weaving together of both tradition and custom and modernity. And I feel that PANAAWTM is one of the only places that also does that as an organization, as a conference, as a space for people together. And it's not just weaving together generations and people across many interests and many backgrounds and geographies, but also people who are different than all of us in this room, and including the liberation of all. So that's my somewhat brief answer to the first question. So the question is again, how has your journey with PANAAWTM shaped your theological or ministerial path? If you were to create a ritual object or an artistic symbol, or if you have one with you to represent this journey, what would it be and what meaning would it hold in your story?
Do you remember how the Syro-Phoenician woman got mad because the young man Jesus refused to give her what she asked for. Instead, he insulted, humiliated, and racially othered her. But she taught her a lesson of crumbs under the table. She invites me to trace the crumbs of history to Christianity's crumbs of history to women who faced refusals in history. I'm a historian of early modern Christianities between 1400 and 1700. The year 1492 marks the beginning of the Western mass evangelization, colonization, displacement, and enslavement of the non-Western population. It also was the birth year of new non-Western Christianities. I searched for evidence of our ancestor women in Asia in the early modern world, in the archival materials. In the texts written by powerful men, most of the women's crumbs have been swept away. Nevertheless, I find crumbs of such a Christian woman as Lady Hosoka Tamagrasha. Her abusive husband kept her under house arrest. Deprived of freedom, Tama gathered her crumbs of intellect. She learned Portuguese, Spanish, and Latin to read Christian books and exchanged letters with the Jesuits about theological questions. By reading, she became a Christian. Since she could not go to church, the Jesuits trained her servant, Kiyohara Ito Maria, who baptized Tamagrasha in her room in 1587. The Jesuits rejected Tamagrasha's petition to leave her husband as they hoped for his potential conversion. Tamagrasha obeyed the church and stayed. She taught women in her residence Christian literature, including the Imitation of Christ, until she died in 1600. Her students became Christian catechists and teachers. They resisted the violence of her husband and the persecution of the unifier Hideyoshi and created an underground network to rescue abused women. I have offered my research in the hope that PANAAWTM women of crumbs can access Tamagrasha's crumbs of subversive teaching.
I came to CTS in 2016, and I was 20 years old. And my first introduction to PANAAWTM was Dr. Ward asking some of the students and friends, hey, have you heard about PANAAWTM? Are you registering to join PANAAWTM this coming year? I did not think much about it because I was not aware of conferences. I was also not sure what my ministerial journey was like, if I wanted to be in doctoral studies, or like I did not really think what it was going to be like. But I showed up at PANAAWTM and I was blown away by the embodiment of being bold, assertive, and owning one's theology and just confidently saying out loud, which was so different from my experience being a teenager in India, where I wasn't really sure if I can question things or if I can have a theological opinion of my own. And so when I came here and I found people who were able to help me vocalize what I want to say and to stand by it was my journey of empowering my own theological journey. So one of the symbols that I think about is a boarding pass or flight. And because most of the conversations with friends were, are you going to PANAAWTM this year? If so, what flight are you taking? Which flight number? Do you want to take an Airbnb? Do you want to get a coffee? What about a layover? And just asking these questions really brought most of our friends closer together and formed another sense of community that is intentional in planning, organizing, and showing up.
Thanks for the question and for the invitation to serve on this panel. So my first conference at PANAAWTM was in 2012, but I was tenured in 2011, which is to say that I did not have the experience of being mentored in grad school through the PANAAWTM network. And even though PANAAWTM existed, so I was in grad school from 1997 to 2003, I also did not know of this network. So PANAAWTM has been a space for me to figure out what it is to be a mid-career, post-tenure person. I have had senior scholars speak into my life, endorse my books, invite me to their schools to speak. I've had colleagues share their journey with me, deepen relationships, personal and professional, and I too hope that I have done something similar for the people who are following in the footsteps. You've heard tonight about the importance of continuing the pipeline, and as I look across the room, I see current and former students who are no longer former students because they are faculty and they are pastors and they are running nonprofits. So PANAAWTM for me has been a space to, again, figure out who I am as a scholar. The other thing I should say is that I was not formally trained from 1997 to 2003 in anything contextualist. That just was not a part of my grad student training. And so it was a number of PANAAWTM scholars. You know, we've got world-class scholars in this room right now whose work was really influential for me as I started to do my own contextualist work in Christian ethics. So I think I'll stop there, and I'm just gonna do a disclaimer. I'm gonna be a bit of a fail tonight. So every question, there's like a creative part of the question, right? So there's like the straightforward question, and there's the, what's your ritual object? You know, what's your art thing? I'm gonna fake, like every time, I'm gonna come up short on the creative part because that's not my forte. But I'm very excited to hear about others' creativity. Go ahead.
There's space for everybody.
Yeah.
Well, I can start with that. I need to turn. Am I on now? No, I think I'm on here. Thank you. Okay, speaking of the creativity, I'll start with a ritual object then. I brought a coconut bowl. This was used for my first confirmation students to put in water to remember their baptism. But some theologians think that coconuts, if Jesus was born into the Pacific, he probably would have used coconut for communion, because when you break it open, it gives both the flesh and the water. So some people think that coconut could be used for communion. For me, I bring this bowl, especially coconut bowl, to symbolize that it contains our own stories, my story, and that we embody our own knowledge and wisdom in life, going through the struggles of colonialism, patriarchy, and also advocacy, empowerment, and resistance. So I was born and raised in Korea, and before I moved to the US in 2019, just before then, I was deeply hurt by the Korean churches because of its patriarchy and sexism, especially when I clearly discerned my vocation as an ordained minister. I just found that there's no space for me here. So it was kind of an exodus for me. So basically, when I first moved out of Korea, I kind of severed my ties with Korea in a way, and I basically did my best to assimilate into white dominant spaces. And all my mentor pastors were white women, and it was my first time in my life that I had seen a lead woman pastor at church, so I was very empowered, but at the same time, I think then I didn't realize that I was fragmenting my identity. So In a way, this reminds me of where Gayatri Spivak says, when she criticizes the relationship between the colonized and the colonizer, that white men are saving brown women from brown men. I think in a way, I thought during that time that I, as a Korean woman, was being saved from Korean men by white women. Because my identity was fragmented, I was carving out my identity as a Korean and just focusing on the empowerment for women in these white dominant spaces. But then one day, I think on campus, I think Macy Sepp, who's here, I think she mentioned about, yay, PANAAWTM. And to be honest, at that time, because I was so hurt by any community, because of the Korean churches that I experienced, I think I was like, I don't have much high hopes about any community. But then pandemic hit, and I was like, I need a community. I need to speak to another women, Asian women in particular. And it was, although it was online, I never knew that an online space could be that invitational, welcoming, and I just felt like I could be myself in that space. And that was just for the first time after I moved out of Korea where I felt that I belonged there. So after that, I started connecting with Asian women pastors, Asian women theologians, and there I realized that, wow, I can be both Korean and a woman and be empowered and be myself. I don't have to be fragmented. There's gonna be a space like this for me to share my stories, to share my struggles and be empowered and be mentored, and also maybe one day to mentor the next generation as well.
Can you hear me? Yep. Yes. Ahyun's email came in late December, I think, for this event. And I knew PANAAWTM way before, but I just wanted to make a connection with that invitation in this past couple of years. And the reason why I wanted to symbolize my journey looking at PANAAWTM and also being part of PANAAWTM. It is my body. A couple of years ago, I was hospitalized. I was in coma more than a week and survived, hospitalized for around 2 weeks. And I had to learn and relearn how to walk. And as a lecturer at the seminary, the first thing that I remember thinking, and I finally realized where I was, is whether or not I can think what I think and what I could say. That's the most fearful event in my history, because I teach theology. How can I make theology synchronized when my brain and my body and my mouth cannot speak the way I'm supposed to? And last year in April, I got diagnosed with cancer. And then again, my body. The theme of embodiment that is part of feminist theologies came from a totally different perspective. And how do I survive? The body that was familiar, but then I have to go through the unfamiliar territory that I thought I knew when I was thinking about embodied theology as an Indonesian woman. And during those process, after the surgery, I returned to the apartment. I was in Malaysia. And the first thing, and similar after I survived the coma, the first thing came to mind is I wanted to dance again. It was part of me doing theology. And now I'm still in the process of grieving the loss of my dad. It was last month. So when Ayun's email came, my dad was still there, But then it was part of me really rethink whether I should come or not. And after the funeral, and I was the only minister in the family, and to let all the rituals and to put the body back to the earth and singing the songs that my father loved. And then I remember Ayun's email again, should I come? And another struggles come and hit my family. And then I asked, should I take this long hours journey from Jakarta to Atlanta? And this is the reality. To be part of this community is not easy. It has challenged me to really rethink about doing theology, but also rethink about my entire body. This is a body of survivor, but this is a dancing body. And just to make that connection of disconnected bodies is what I have learned from PANAAWTM. We're not only celebrating, but we are honoring the challenges and the difficulties.
Yeah.
So anytime I come and remembering PANAAWTM and all the mentors, Paul Quilan, Lady Russell, Shannon Clarkson, and many other women, and also this very moment in this room, I remember there are thousands of women before us, whether we know them or not. And from their narratives and experiences, I think, and this is part of my story this afternoon, I want to keep dancing, but I cannot dance it myself. It will be with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you all. I've heard answers around subversion, belonging, empowerment, and embodying the bodies we have, and embodying the theologies we have and are learning and leaning into through that. So over these 40 years of PANAAWTM, what stories and traditions do you think have been the essential ingredients that have sustained PANAAWTM's mission? If these were elements in a cherished family recipe, what would each ingredient symbolize, and how have they blended to nurture our community's purpose? I know everyone wants to say rice, probably. I'm going to say broth. It's the base of so many soups and curries, our broth and our aromatics. And I think the broth of PANAAWTM is the sisterhood and the mentoring. I know that ever since I stepped foot literally into this refectory in 2019, I have not once been alone. I've been connected to all of you, and I know that is true for many of our sisters and many of our siblings who are part of PANAAWTM. So, what stories and traditions do you think have been essential ingredients that have sustained PANAAWTM's mission? And if these were elements in a cherished family recipe, what would each ingredient symbolize, and how have they blended to nurture our community's purpose?
Out of necessity, crumb-gathering women create flavorful dishes from table scraps. The young man Jesus would not help the Syrophoenician's suffering daughter. He knew that she was a difficult teenager, acting crazy, mentally and physically ill, filled with despair and starved for positive dreams. The mother and daughter lived on the fringes of a colonized nation in a vast empire. The authorities stifled their existence as an ethnic religious minority. Catching a piece of good news amidst the depressing daily news, the mother went to obtain it for her daughter. When the young man Jesus, would not share his divine gift with her because of blah, 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 the mother served him a spicy dish of words. At one bite, the young man Jesus changed his attitude. He used his superpower to heal the daughter virtually. I recall another crumb gathering Christian woman, named Julia. Widowed at a young age, she spent a dozen years as an abbess of a monastery of pure Buddhism. After debating with Buddhist and Jesuit priests, Julia was converted and became a Christian preacher. The Jesuit constitution does not admit women in their order, nor allow the establishment of a women's monastery. Nevertheless, around 1600, Julia persuaded 2 Jesuit priests to aid her in starting the Society of Miyako no Bhikkhuni, or the Nuns of Kyoto. The active Christian bhikkhunis openly preached, catechized, and baptized hundreds of women and men, Japanese and international, even during persecution. Their success was one of the triggers of the Tokugawa government's total ban on Christianity. The authorities publicly tortured the bhikkhunis to induce recantation. Women resisted. In 1614, the shogunate deported Julia and 15 bhikkhunis with the Jesuits and male catechists. The exile community resettled near Manila and became enclosed nuns devoted to intercessory prayers, visions, and prophecies. One of the bhikkhunis, Pak Marina, was a native of Korea who was doubly dislocated from Korea to Japan during the Imjin War of Hideyoshi's invasion, and then to the Philippines. The Japanese authorities destroyed everything Christian, including the bhikkhunis' records, as dangerous criminals. But the Jesuits, who savored Julia's and Marina's crumbs of networking beyond borders, sent their accounts to Rome, where they were preserved. Over the past 40 years, PANAAWTM crumb gathering women have imagined, debated, networked, and negotiated for healing of their international daughters. I hope the new generation of historians will keep track of their crumbs.
Well, talking about crumbs, I used to, when I was growing up, I would always have chai every day because my mom would make chai at least twice in a day. And with chai, I would have bread and then dip it in even if there are crumbs, I would dip it and then eat it. And that reminds me of for a family's cherished recipe, it's something that complements any event or gathering is the presence of water, tea, and anything that is accompanied with it. And I always think of that being a very important factor in gathering, and with the question of what gives you hope. That's a question that even as I had the opportunity to be the Midwest Regional Coordinator for PANAAWTM, and one of the big questions that we had in every gathering is what gives you hope? And that was always over a cup of coffee and in small conversations where people just would have informal conversations. But that was the place where everybody felt more refreshed just with that question and the aroma of the tea or coffee that one is drinking. And sometimes the most simplest ingredients make the most impact, and I think that is a ritual that gets carried, something that's in the past but also in the future.
So the question is about stories and traditions, and I'll skip the food connection. With stories, I want to share one and speak of 2 traditions. The first story is a bit of an origin story. It's been explained to me that in the beginning of PANAAWTM, even before it was PANAAWTM, it was a different name, there was a primarily international student stream from the East Coast, not exclusively, but primarily. And then there was a primarily Asian American stream, so Asian and Asian American. And I think that is part of the secret sauce of PANAAWTM, that we can hold these two together, even with cultural differences between and among ethnicities and generations. So I absolutely love that story, and I love how it's become part of PANAAWTM's DNA. In terms of traditions, I want to speak to two of them. Boyoung, you had mentioned this, that PANAAWTM, the elders have taught us, let's avoid a scarcity mindset. Let us not directly compete. That doesn't mean we're not going to sometimes go for the same job, same opportunity, same scholarship. But let's embrace one another, offer invitations, extend, try to avoid thinking that it can only be me, right? So I just love that tradition. I've tried to live it out. I've tried to pass that forward to the people that I mentor. And then the other tradition, September, you mentioned it a little bit, is commemorating celebratory events and also milestone events. So when I think of PANAAWTM, so we're commemorating the 40th anniversary, but I also think of commemorating smaller things. A sister gets installed. She's starting, her call to ministry. We send gifts of stoles and we show up when we can. A sister or sibling, her parent has died. She's in grief. We send condolences and flowers. Someone gets their first job. Someone launches their first book. So it's just commemorating the big and small moments. And it's sometimes, usually it's not the entire PANAAWTM network. The regional gatherings hopefully can facilitate more of that. But that is absolutely a tradition that I have loved, that I have personally benefited from, and I hope to see it continue in the future. Thanks.
Am I on now?
Yes.
Is it?
Should be on there.
I don't think it is on. This is passing down the recipe, passing down the mic. So when I think about the two most unique ingredients that have sustained PANAAWTM, it's not in ingredients itself, but I think one is a counter-capitalistic network, and two is resisting force against the competitive academic networking. And I keep quoting some scholars because I just passed my general exam, but Chandra Talpade Mohanty, who's an Indian scholar in gender studies, notes in her work, Feminism Without Borders, that feminism is not just about gender inequality, but also about tackling issues of colonization, the state's control of citizenship, globalization, capitalism, and more. And she argues that decolonizing feminism requires demystifying the capitalist system, the very system we live in. And she further asserts that feminism should resist its ties to the academic career track and center its agenda around the lives of women. And I believe this is the very feminism that PANAAWTM embodies. There is no other conference that I've seen that funds students' airfare and lodging, as well as supports professionals without institutional funding. And as a staff member of PANAAWTM, it has been honors to keep track of all the reimbursement and lodging. But at the same time, I was mesmerized and inspired by the spirit of PANAAWTM. It is supported by so many volunteers, passionate leaders, the four mothers, which makes us deeply anti-capitalistic. And through the generosity of many donors and leaders, we are able to provide students and early career professionals the opportunity to network without financial burden. And also, while we are a group of strong academic focus, we do not function as any other academic conference that seeks to build academic careers competitively, as Grace mentioned. We come together to be fed, to share our lives. We build our agencies, seek liberation, and empower one another. So in that way, I think it's quite fitting, it's very fitting to call PANAAWTM's work a cherished family recipe. And I want to add a little bit.
Cherished Family's recipe, not for sale. Because it's not about making money, it's not about competing with one another or seeking achievement, but about nurturing solidarity, sharing stories and struggles, and fostering a deep sense of belonging. So although I don't have a specific family recipe or the ingredients, I think we can call it a family recipe, cherished and not for sale.
Recipes. It reminds me of two things. It is closely related to PANAAWTM. First, a theology of enough, that we have enough and therefore we can share. And second, theology must be delicious, and theology is delicious. So this is what we are talking about, and it reminds me of my mother's recipe. It is my comfort food, although it's difficult to make it. It is fish, because I come from an ocean, a small town near the ocean. And 2 days before I fly out to Atlanta, I purposely made it just to calm me down. It is fish with mix of ingredients, ginger, I almost speak in Indonesian, ginger, tamarind, turmeric, lemongrass, and I cannot remember the other one. Oh, garlic. And of course, fish. And then I wish, this is my biggest dream, one day, all of us can have a global retreat where we can just come and cook and share meal, where Jesus is leading and is providing. And if we can be prayerful for that and be telling it out, let's see, perhaps in 10 years or even less than that, we'll be able to get together and bring our real recipes, not for sale, but to celebrate together because we have enough and our theology is delicious.
Actually, sharing food together is what inspired this year's theme. So you're onto something with your ikan. So I hear theology is delicious and our recipe is not for sale, and I think about how much that richness is part of family and is woven into every part of who we are and our cultures and our traditions and how we experience the world. So as a child, my grandparents actually gave me a weaving loom, and my mother was like, why do you want to learn how to weave? But my grandparents were like, let the child be. So while it's not a family skill, and my mother thought it was a little silly, she also thought it was important for us to see that patterns and seek patterns and to understand textiles and how patterns and textiles and different ways of experiencing the world allow us to interact with the world and how each thing interacts with each other. We needed to learn the fibers as deeply as we learned the soil of our garden. Weaving is an art that requires great skill, like a master weaver choosing threads for a sacred textile that requires great skill. What patterns from our shared past should we preserve, and what new designs should we incorporate to inspire future generations? As we look toward the next 40 years of PANAAWTM, what wisdom must we bring forward?
Some historians study hagiography, not for historical facts, but to understand the crumbs of communal memories of their holy dead. Hagiographic stories never stay the same. Each new generation of hagiographers translates and rewrites them, mixing what they think and feel about sanctity. I read the Jesuit descriptions of a Christian martyr, Araki Susanna, as hagiography. With a ban on Christianity in 1614 came fierce persecution in Tokugawa, Japan. But in 1650, The authorities executed about 40,000 men, women, and children. Susanna was beheaded in Nagasaki in 1626. She was a housewife with a toddler girl, Maria. She was also the organizing head of the Women's Confraria, which was dedicated to Ignatius of Loyola. The underground Christians formed confrarias or sodalities to provide continued pastoral, spiritual, and evangelical care because priests were seldom available. Susanna came forward with Maria in her arms when the officials arrested all members of her confraria in Arima. The authorities charged her with the crime of hiding a Jesuit brother, Gaspar Sadamatsu, in her house. She pleaded guilty. She would not recant her faith even after the horrific torture. On the snowy Christmas day, 1625, the officials tied Susanna's limbs and hair tightly to a pine tree and hung her with Maria tied on her right foot. When Maria cried from hunger, Susanna asked the officials to untie her so that she could nurse Maria. Refused, she could only console Maria with gentle words of promise. After 6 hours, they took them down. But when Susanna held Maria, Maria gagged because her milk was bloody. Susanna refused when someone brought a rug to cover the shivering Maria, saying she wanted to imitate the poverty of Christ when it all began on that first Christmas. They took Maria away. Susanna endured many other humiliations and torture, in addition to the pain of not being able to die with Maria. In 1987, the church rediscovered her crumbs and wove another layer into her hagiography by beatifying Susanna and her 8 companion martyrs of 1626. Hopefully, no PANAAWTM woman did not and will not have to be executed for her conviction and resistance. Nonetheless, a hagiographic retelling of the hardships and glories of their sacred mothers is a suitable method to keep.
A sari is a fabric that is that in India pretty much every culture has its own way of interpreting how one wears a sari. It's been here for like for about 5,000 years old. It's a fabric, but then it can tell people about their class, it can make a political statement, and it can also show somebody's caste. Because at one point of time, a complete sari would mean you're wearing the fabric with the blouse, but for until the past, there was a time where Dalits or lower caste people could not wear the upper part of the fabric to show that they're not upper caste. But their resistance was, the Dalits' resistance was to fight until they're able to wear the complete set of fabric and clothing, and that becomes a political statement on how they find resistance and resilience and continue to, and how sari adapts to this resistance. And it's a fabric. Every time somebody wears it, the same fabric is different each time because the drapes are different, the pleats are different. So it still is unique every time somebody wears it. And that, when I think about that as something about PANAAWTM, I think about the pandemic time where there was a lot of change in how PANAAWTM had to adapt to the online platforms of incorporating the digital media, or who gets to be part of this conference. And I was able to attend from India during the pandemic. And for me, even though it was not in person, it was very significant for me because I wanted to be here because that became my safe space. And when it felt like the opportunities to have that connections were depleting because of social distancing, this became that the conference through its online platform became a way of like resistance and being in community, and everybody who showed up to continue the work of PANAAWTM to where it is now in hybridity, that is live streaming and in person. I think it's the way that we adapt to the circumstances by being resilient is something that I think only comes up in that moment, but the faith is that we are able to find a way to do that when those moments arise. Yeah.
So to speak to the question of new designs, one thing that PANAAWTM has been doing recently that I want to continue for us to do more of is to make explicit values that we've long held. So for instance, PANAAWTM has, from the time I started coming, and surely well before, has been queer friendly. But you wouldn't know that unless you came, or unless you recently have seen our revised mission statement. PANAAWTM has also been Christian and interreligious, right? And many folks with Asian heritage backgrounds, they have that in their family, they have that in their own practice. And only more recently has that interreligious engagement been, again, a little bit more explicit. I would even say with the question of women. So if you look at the acronym, Pacific, Asian, North American, Asian Women in Theology and Ministry, PANAAWTM welcomes not just women, but gender expansive persons, gender non-binary. And again, these are decisions that the board has wrestled with, changed their mission statement, and so this new design of, again, speaking aloud, values that have long been held, but perhaps you wouldn't know unless you were in the know, is something I would encourage us to continue to do.
Thank you. Maybe again, another quote or a work from PANAAWTM. But Dr. Jin-Young Choi worked on distinguishing phronesis from Sophia, which both means knowledge and wisdom. But Dr. Choi writes that phronesis is knowledge in action, or knowing what to do in a particular situation. And this distinction resonates deeply with our lived experiences as Asian women in a colonial, patriarchal, and capitalistic world, which presents us with a multitude of unexpected challenges. And so even when we have clear vision for our lives, I think we're often confronted by complexities, whether it is the new president being elected, visa issues, international travels, complications around citizenship. In these circumstances, it requires us to continually exercise resilience, wisdom, and phronesis, adapting to each situation and taking action in response to these layers of challenges. And I think our embodied knowledge does not focus on detached or abstract or logocentric forms of wisdom. Rather, it emphasizes the practical, somatic wisdom and insights that help us navigate the interlayers of life. And this embodied epistemology, our lived experiences, is not only a skill to be recognized, but also a powerful tool for resisting colonial logic and epistemology. So I think as we weave the fabric of PANAAWTM's future, I believe we must preserve the wisdom of phronesis. And at the same time, as Dr. Kao said, we must incorporate new designs like interfaith collaboration and other new ways of connecting and expanding our work so that we can empower more and more people, more marginalized people. And I think identity, the Asian, is very fluid. And it's not that, I think Dr. Nam Soon Kang said, we shouldn't focus on what is Asian, we should focus on who is Asian. Because what focuses on what's what's been already stabilized, but who
explains our lived experiences, the fluidity of it. So I think as we focus more on the fluidity of our identity and expanding it, I think that would be the next work for us further.
Okay, this is my new pattern. When we find patterns, sometimes, we have to be ready because it's against traditional patterns, but you make sure. So I'm wearing the very simple sarung from Bali, just to remind me that I used to be able to dance Balinese dance, one of the most difficult Indonesian traditional dances. And I mixed with a t-shirt, tells about the importance of breathing and dancing, not the importance of words, unfortunately for theologians. So patterns is a challenge for us to think theology, to mix sometimes unmatched, and then to come to paradoxes, and to make it, for me, as simple as is possible, but it's deep. And wearing this sarong, I can still run. And if I meet with elder people, just to be respected of them being present, I can ask my body just to sit politely. But if dangers come, I can run, and that's the fun of thinking about new patterns, the paradoxes of it. Thank you so much.
You ladies are so amazing. Thank you so much for this conversation, this kitchen table conversation. I would like to, as we're concluding, invite all of you. I used to be a teacher, so I do not apologize for this. I want to invite all of you into our final question as we're going to be moving to the President's house. So we're not going to answer this question on the panel, but I want us all, as members of PANAAWTM, to think about this as we go forward. Futures must be nurtured in order to grow well. How can we continue to create spaces of belonging, empowerment, and solidarity within PANAAWTM if our community, within PANAAWTM, if our community were a garden, which seeds from our diverse Asian and Asian American traditions would we plant and cultivate together to ensure a thriving and inclusive future? And perhaps one day we can join Septemi in Jakarta or Sulawesi and have some of that delicious dish that she was describing, or we can visit one another and gather and cook and eat and be. But I want us to think about what kind of future we want to cultivate as we're going through this weekend, and feel free to share that. But thank you so much for your thoughts and your answers and sharing of yourselves and your experiences. Thank you all for your attention. I would like to invite all of us, I wrote something specific, to the reception at the President's residence. The local committee in the sparkly headbands will guide you. I think that's such a brilliant way to identify everyone, and light-colored shirts. The shuttles are on their way and will be parked at some point on the way, picking people up on the way to the President's house. So if you can't stay for the reception, there will be shuttles to the hotel. And then we have limited time, so please make haste and enjoy the hospitality of this seminary and the hospitality of our time together. Thank you.